Hey guys, Sheshnag Yoga Center. I'm David G. A video on God in action. Might as well talk about it just for the example, and maybe someone will interpret it or appreciate it in a certain way. If not, still going to do it anyway. So just an example of God in action. On about the 15th of January 2014, I decided that I was going to buy a second laptop computer. I was going to look for it on the Monday the 20th of January. So when the 20th of January came around, myself and my girlfriend at the time, as well as her children, went to several shops on the outskirts of Hobart, Tasmania. After checking out several options for laptop computers and going to several op shops, I decided to go to one more place, and that was in the centre of the CBD. So we drove in the car park. We were intending to go home for lunch by about 11:30 or 11 o'clock. But as we drove in the car park, it was 11:32. One of the daughters asked nicely if we could have some lunch in town while we were there. We agreed, and then we discussed 3 venues for lunch. Then I went and checked out the laptop option before going to lunch. We decided for lunch at the venue that was 30 metres away from my best man's house, Brock. I hadn't spoken to him since Christmas Eve, where I kissed him on the cheek and I said, "I love you, my brother." I had tried to call him on the 18th and miscalled him, and then he tried to call me back and miscalled me. But this was the 20th, and it was around 12 o'clock. So the girls and I, we walked to the lunch venue, a pub on the corner. As we were diagonally opposite the pub, I looked up the street to see Brock's house. There were 2 police utilities out the front of his house. There was a torrential amount of water pouring out down the stairs and flooding from beneath the upstairs unit. I won't go into specifics, but I will say that I did not go into the pub. The girls did, and they ordered lunch. I went up to Brock's house and discovered that his recently deceased body had been taken out of the house within the last 15 minutes. I broke down, my knees went weak, my stomach felt sick, and grief hit me like nothing else. I returned to the pub and sobbed until halfway through the meal. I returned to Brock's house. By that time the police had gone, and I still had a key, so I went inside. There was an inch of water throughout the property. I went up into the house and felt the confusion of the spirit of Brock. And since Brock and I only or predominantly related on the dimension of appreciation of God, I arrived there soon after he departed his body. I believe that it was coordinated by the Great Being, as all things are. The amazing thing is, there were a lot of random decisions or what I thought were random decisions, in our travels that morning, and the ability to be in the presence of that vicinity within 10 minutes after his body was taken out. That's God in action. Another story. What are we? We're a long time later. Now it's March, end of March 2015. I've just returned from the Byron Bay Spirit Festival. I flew to the Gold Coast and I was planning to hitchhike from the Gold Coast to the festival in Mullumbimby. I had previously organised accommodation through couchsurfing.org about 4 kilometres out of Mullumbimby along a long windy road. And I thought, no sweat, I'll just hitch from the Gold Coast down to Mullum, then I'll hitch every day back to the house. That wasn't to be. I arrived in the Gold Coast and my friend informed me that he had 2 motorbikes, a beautiful Harley, which I'm not into so much, and a beautiful 20-year-old Triumph, impeccable condition. He told me the previous Saturday before I arrived that he tried to sell the Triumph. He had someone come to look at it, but for the first time that he had owned it during the last year or two, the bike did not start and would not start that very instance that the man was standing there wanting to check the bike out. The first time ever, once, only once, did this bike not start. I arrive on the Wednesday. The bike starts straight away. My friend, Atma,